All right, it's 3 p.m. Good afternoon, everyone. We are delighted to have you join us as we kick off yet another insightful session on connecting the dots. First and foremost, we extend our gratitude to our esteemed speakers for their participation in this panel discussion. Harsha Yelamaraju, People Business Partner at Pegasystems, Shakshi Sood, HR Director at Bayersdorf, India, Sindhu Kalyansundaram, founder of Ignite Academy and co-founder of Servo Happiness, and Rajat Dubey, co-founder and director at Big Ideas Social Media Recruitment Private Limited. Warm welcome to all. HRAI welcomes you all to the session on this insightful topic, balancing work and life, the role of employers in redefining boundaries. To know more about HRA and its events, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. To steer today's conversation, we have with us Rajat Dubey, the director and co-founder of Big Ideas Social Media Recruitment Private Limited, India's first recruitment firm driven entirely by the power of social media. He also leads Big IT Jobs, a dedicated hiring platform focused exclusively on the tech and IT industry, connecting top talent with some of the biggest names in the sector. With a deep understanding of how talent, technology, and culture intersect, Rajat brings both strategic insight and real world experience into conversations about the future of work. To know more about Rajat, you can follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. We are excited to have him moderate this very relevant discussion today. Over to you, Rajat.
Got it. Thank you so much, Faisal, for this kind introduction. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm truly excited to moderate this panel discussion on a topic that's both timely and deeply, personal to many of us. To help us explore this very relevant and timely topic, balancing work and life, the role of employers, and redefining boundaries. To help us explore this very relevant and timely topic, okay, we are joined by three incredible leaders who bring rich perspective from the worlds of technology, consumer brand, and people development. First we have a Harsha Elamaraju, Director and People Partner at Pega Systems. Harsha comes with over 20 years of experience in HR leadership and currently leads the people strategy of platform engineering teams in India. She is known for her ability to align people priorities with business outcomes in high growth tech environment and a strong advocate for building a scalable people first culture that drive both engagement and performance. Welcome, Harsha.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next, we'll be having a Sakshi Shu. She is the director of HR at Beerstop India, the name behind iconic brands like Nivea. With more than 15 years of experience in the industry, Sakshi had led people strategies across diverse sectors and is passionate about building inclusive and high performing workplaces. Her leadership style blends the structure with empathy, and she brings a sharp understanding of how culture, flexibility, and performance can go hand in hand. Welcome, Sakshi.
Thank you, Rajat.
And
Thank you for a very
yeah,
kind introduction.
great. And completing our panel is Sindhu Kalyanasundara, a speaker, entrepreneur, and the founder of Ignite Academy and the Server Happiness. With over 2 decades of experience spanning IT consulting, retails, and CRM and program management, Sindhu now focus on helping organizations build emotional intelligent, purpose-driven workplaces. Through her ventures, she supports team across India in leadership development, cultural transformation, and building a true sense of belongings. And in her words, a perfect day includes filter coffee, soulful music, a good book, and a meaningful conversation. So we are definitely in the right company today. Okay. So with this powerhouse panel, I'm excited to dive in and hear what's working, what's evolving, and what's the future of balanced work life really looks like. So here, Harsha, I'd love to start with you.
Sure.
Yeah. So you see, like some companies encourage no meeting days or digital detox hours. Okay. So have you tried or considered similar ideas to help employees disconnect in your organization or maybe in your past organizations?
Absolutely. I think, especially after people were returning back to work after COVID, it was an imperative for us to help people get adjusted to the new way of working, right? Because till then you were on the screens working, and now you've navigated back to your offices. You're wondering, should I take a call late in the evening or early in the day? What is that boundary, right? And I think today's conversation is going to center around that. Of course, we did a lot of initiatives in PEGA. I can speak for what PEGA has done. PEGA has a lot of policies which are centered to drive a digital boundary, enabling employees to give their best. One, I can talk about our vacation policy itself, right? So we have a market leading practice of uncapped vacations. So what that means is you're not talking about a number there, a 24 or a 12. Instead, what you would do is see what works for you. I think that's the first step in saying, okay, we care for you, and we believe that you're going to make a right choice in saying what is the time that you need to take off to rejuvenate, take a vacation, and come back to work. That's one. Secondly, I think we did have a designate wellness days and well-being days. When I say wellness days, it is a time off beyond your 10 or 12 holidays in the year. You have these additional holidays where we encourage you to center, your entire day around something to care for yourself, for your family, or people around you. So these happen twice in a year. We were having it at a higher frequency in the previous years. This year, we have it like twice a year. And there's also a well-being day where we are intentional about organizing a lot of activities at work where employees can participate, for example, in a meditation session. They can participating in learning something about mindfulness, so on and so forth. So that's another step. And while there are many, the last one I'll just quickly call out is about a lot of resources being available in terms of mental well-being, right? Like a EAP assistance, an employee assistance program. We talk about it extensively, and people can use it when they want. So these are a couple of things in the direction of saying how can you digitally detox. And of course, the last very small gesture is all about saying, okay, this is out of office hours. Be mindful about setting a meeting. So this kind of sensitization happens across the organization at all levels. So I'll pause there and we can keep talking more as we move forward.
Great, great, lovely, lovely. So going ahead, I mean, I'll be having a question for Sakshi. Okay. So Sakshi, if you'll see nowadays, like the workforce, specifically when we are, considering younger generation, okay, who value, work-life balance more than ever. Okay. So how as an employer, I mean, or if you say consider yourself, okay, how are the employers adopting to meeting these changing, okay, expectations nowadays?
Different things, Rajat. I would really say that there is no one shoe fits all, one size which fits everyone. There are different approaches which we need to take, especially with Gen Z. Now, if I were to talk of my own organization, we've got a good blend of different generations working together. Now, the specific challenge comes with your Gen Z, who are people who do not really would want to who do not really care about the old traditional hierarchies and systems in which we at least we people are used to working. So we've done many things, whether it is hybrid work structure. For instance, I have a 3+2 work structure where I have to work out of office on 3 days and 2 days I can operate from home. Now my home can be here where I work out of. I could be in any other city. All that works for us. Outcome based work, now this is something we are just dabbling into. Outcome based work is where we really see if that person is contributing, and what are the person is contributing really does not matter to us. In fact, my own signature line, which goes with every email, reads that I am sending my email at a work hour which is convenient to me. May not be convenient for you. No pressures. Respond to me and read my email and then respond to me at whatever hour is comfortable for you. It's a very simple symbolic thing, but it means a lot to people, especially so while at Biastoff, we people are used to seeing this email. A lot of people carry this as a signature line, but there are people external to Biastoff also who, when they read this line, most people have commented on it, and they think that it's a great practice. Personally, I think it's a very small gesture, but it means a lot to people who don't think at least the way I do. I would still consider myself old school when it comes to a lot of things, but people value these things. Uh, Other thing is the big emphasis on well-being, mental health. Now, this is something we've always had a employee assistance program in EAP and different partners all along, but that is not a end all. It could be a one shop repository for us. It does not make that big a change in our life, in our culture. What we really think the culture defining thing for us is the managers, the people managers that our uh, different teams work with. The culture is really defined by those individuals rather than somebody sitting at the top and sitting in an ivory tower and defining this is how my culture would be. And that is what our people sync with. So that, and I think maybe the use of technology, we're also a very technology forward organization. So whether it's the use of AI or maybe collaboration, improving tools, or it could be simple stuff like just AI helping you prioritize your tasks. So very simple things, but they really fulfill the need that the new generation has.
Great. Lovely insight, by your experience. Great. So going ahead, like Sindhu, if I was to know, like you'll be having a vast experience working with multiple corporates. Okay. So what kind of unique values or cultural practices have you seen in companies? Okay. That genuinely, supports healthy work-life boundaries?
Rajat, work-life balance is a phrase that we hear a lot. But what really defines it for me are these everyday signals that a company gives about how much the company respects your time away from work. So I'm going to give you three examples. The very first example is from my very early experience, the company that I started my career with, which was GE. Now, their logging off on time was not just allowed, it was expected. That's the norm. So you log off at 5 o'clock, you're expected to log off at 5 o'clock. There's no overtime, there's no guilt, and nobody will ask you any questions. They would ask you questions if they see you at 5:15. Now, that kind of structure made it very clear. Your life outside of work matters just as much as your time inside it. Later, when I was working in London, there was another company which was equally powerful but took a very different approach to it. People came in at 8:30 in the morning, they left at 5:30 in the evening. No one batted an eyelid, no questions, no awkward conversations. It was understood when your day ends, you just leave. And the company took it a step further, which was during winter season because it gets dark sooner. The company said that people could leave at 4 o'clock because they had life outside work. And it was just a casual statement. It was not an announcement, it was accepted. And in India, when I started working with different companies, we do training and development programs, and there was one company which took it even further. Now, imagine a company where employees are encouraged to use their privileged leaves. Now, imagine if they are rewarded for exhausting all their leaves. Now, this particular company took it one step further. They said that if you exhaust all your leaves in a year, we will give you a reward of 2 additional leaves. Now, this company does not just talk about taking rest, they celebrate rest. And we all know what this company is. The company I'm talking about is Marico. Now, Marico, as I've seen during my programs, is a very people-friendly company. So when I visited them for one of my training programs, I was really astonished to see these kind of practices. And now all these companies send three powerful messages as values. Number one, trust. The company trusts the employees trust the company. The second value is ownership. The company believes that, yes, I respect you, and therefore I believe you take ownership for your work. Like what Sakshi said, outcome based. I'm not worried about whether you're clocking in 10 hours. What I'm worried about is your deliverable, your outcome. And number three, respect. It is given that the employees will respect the time that is given to them. And most importantly, especially in the case of Marico, was empathy. I know you have a life outside work, and I will encourage you to take rest. And that's a great ethic. So, trust, respect, empathy, and ownership are four values that I see that come into place when organizations establish a work life balance policy.
Great. Good, good to know, whatsoever the experience you had in past working with corporates. Great, lovely. So going ahead, if I'll was to know from Harsha. Okay, as you know, like work-life balance is closely linked to our mental well-being. Okay, so what are kind of initiatives you have taken, okay, in your HR team that you have implemented to reduce burnout and support mental health or at your workplace?
I think, Rajat, I spoke about a couple of them earlier when we started off. Beyond that, what we had done is providing a framework, especially in a current environment where we have everybody is on a flex work arrangement. That means you show up some days and sometimes you're working out of office, and that requires a whole lot of, okay, how do you bring all these pieces together? What is the framework which is going to guide you, right? And how do you ensure that given you have a mix of in-house and remote employees, how do you ensure your business outcomes are also positively impacted? So we created a playbook. I think the contribution from the people team is saying there's a playbook. The playbook clearly calls out what are our flex practices. So if you're working in this model, what are a few guidelines? If I may call out, one of the guidelines is you are always an on-camera organization. If you're on camera, we believe there's a certain kind of a connection that you are able to build with people, certain kind of a relationship that you can eventually grow, right? So that is one of the various flex practices we are talking about. We also have some collaboration practices. So that means you do have a prescriptive 101 every 2 weeks with your manager, and you're going to talk about how's it working in this work arrangement? What is the kind of support that you require? How can the manager help you kind of become more effective in your delivery, right? So that's also a collaboration practice. And of course, there's a connection. So we have these connection days where people come together because these remote employees, they need to come in, they need to collaborate. And we believe as a product organization, collaboration is the key to invention and innovation, right? So we have prescriptive days where people come together. Now, as a people team, I think our contribution is mostly in kind of laying down these frameworks and also facilitate these kind of days where people are coming together, talking about how their work-life integration is and what's the kind of support we can extend.
Great, great, love. So, what do you think, like, when coming ahead with mid-level managers, okay, who actually plays somewhere a role when enabling and disabling the work, I mean, work-life balance. So, what being as an HR or leadership team you are into, okay, so how actually the entire team can, train and support them to manage with very empathy or something?
I think it was Sakshi who was saying managers are the torchbearer of anything that you have in the organization. You want to put, trickle down in the organization, right? So we do have a lot of sensitization sessions because these are people who are going to role model that culture for you. And also because managers are going to kind of meet with their employees very regularly. There's a high emphasis on saying when you meet up, these are a few things you have to cover essentially before you jump into measuring outcomes. You understand how the arrangement is working for the employee. And typically in Pega, we review the work arrangement twice a year. So at the beginning of the year, someone's marked as a flex employee. That means you show up 3 times a week. But then later, due to whatever situations you want this to be changed to remote, in the middle of the year, you can always have this conversation with the manager. So I think there is a greater emphasis in encouraging managers to be very empathetic, understanding what the employee is saying. We do have our own platforms where there is a lot of listening enabled. I think we will talk about eventually, but there's a listening saying, how's this working for you? What can we do to make it better?
Great,
So in
great,
short,
lovely.
your question, yes, managers, I think these are guys who are going to make your culture role in the organization.
So Shakshi begins into the same part and leading the entire HR function. I mean, if I wish to know your opinion, like any sort of initiative your team has implemented, to reduce the same burnout and support the mental health of your, employees at work. Uh, you're mute, I guess.
So common mistake.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So Rajat, I touched upon this briefly in my last response as well. I think besides the number of initiatives we take, the make or break for any initiative, or rather a make or break situation for any culture, is really the people managers. So the focus lately at Biostock has been in training more and more of these people and reinforcing the things that we need these people to communicate. How can they become role models? So first thing that we do is ensure that, boundaries, work life boundaries as we call, they are role modeled by the people managers. Unless people see their bosses doing it, people are not going to be able to do this. So it is first of all everybody role modeling, right from leadership to middle manager to right down to the uh, feet on street guy. Everybody has understands that this is something that we are absolutely clear on, and this is what we want to build in the organization. So one thing is that. The other bit is, uh, it is a manager's job. For example, it's easy for me to explain it in terms of a sales manager. Every month, or maybe at whatever frequency it happens in other organizations, there is a forecasting that managers do, that this is the amount of product that you'll go sell in the market, etc., etc. We do the similar thing for managers to help them understand that there is a gatekeeping in terms of the workload that you are giving an individual. Everybody is under stress. Sales is always something that you need to work on. So especially it is my sales managers who come back and say that our teams are feeling overworked, they are overwhelmed by the amount of work. So the gatekeeping job absolutely rests with the people managers, and it is the HR team's responsibility that we make them understand how do you properly do a gatekeeping. Now, one side is gatekeeping. The other side of the coin is uh, managers also being able to understand that if an employee is headed towards burnout, which is, and we've coined a term for it called burnout sentinel. Now, it may not be very commonly used, but it's just something where our managers are trained to pick up on these early warning indicators, which help us understand that there may or may not be a potential stress situation that one of our employees will be going through and what really can be done about it. So, if I were to really cut it short and give you a very to the point response to what we've been doing, we've been focusing on our people managers at every level. Small stuff, very simple things which can really make a dent in the culture that we are trying to really create. It's an inclusive culture, inclusive in every sense of the word. So I'm not just focusing on DEI in the normal sense that people interpret it. In every sense of the word, we are trying to create a culture one team at a time, driven by the people manager of that team. So the focus has been people managers for us, out and out.
Interesting. Great. So let's say if Sindhu, I just wanted to know from your side, okay, let's say there are companies, huge companies you have worked or maybe you have seen somewhere, okay. What can we learn from those companies where employees are both highly engaged and respectful for their work-life boundaries, in your opinion?
What I've seen with companies is number one is there is a huge respect for each other. Now, most of the companies where I've seen that there is a healthy work-life balance, these companies do not loudly proclaim about their policies or values. Like both Harsha and Sakshi said, the responsibility rests with the line managers. HR is out there to frame policies or frameworks, but nobody blames HR because every single people leader or manager assumes ownership and responsibility for their team. Because we've seen it everywhere. Ultimately, when there is a lot of attrition, many times it's blamed on the leaders, blamed on the leadership style. And therefore, work life balance is a huge component of whether there is attrition or not. So, some examples, like I said, when you have an organization or when you have a people leader who is indirectly communicating a message to their team saying that I trust you, I'm not going to micromanage you, but all I'm worried about is are we delivering this to the customer by 5 p.m. tomorrow? Now, that sends a very strong message. Intrinsically, the employee is getting the message that, okay, he or she trusts me with this piece of work. They're trusting me with the deliverable, and therefore I should own this piece of work. And these are also companies that exhibit a very high level of what we call sense of belonging. When we talk about sense of belonging, we're talking about employees having the mindset of this is my product, this is my team, this is my deliverable, these are my customers. Now, the sense of belonging is hugely driven by people managers. It is not ultimately the responsibility of only HR, it is the responsibility of every single leader in the organization. So, Companies that have a very healthy work life balance are also companies that have leaders who empower their teams with trust, with respect, with ownership, leading to a high sense of belonging.
Good, good to know, like your respect as well. So, like Sakshi, if being as a HR leader, like I was to ask, looking ahead, how do you see the concept of work-life balance evolving? Okay, so what companies so to start preparing for now, so looking forward, they can be prepared for the things in the future.
Sure, Rajat. Very, very important question if you ask me. But before I really answer that, uh, it's important to pause and really understand why are we talking of this evolving work life balance model. Why is there a need for it? First and foremost answer that comes to anyone's head is COVID. It shook us. It gave us a very different way of looking at things. What we thought could never be done was done. A lot of roles which were unimaginable to be possible to be done at home or remotely became possible. So that was the first disruptor. The second bit is technology. Technology is changing things at a pace that people cannot cope up with. People don't understand. And at least I am one of those who really doesn't understand how to leverage what the kind of power that we have on our hands. Uh, it's like driving a vehicle which has so much of horsepower that you don't know what to do with it unless you are a Michael Schumacher. You really don't know what to how to control that beast or really what to do with it. So technology is another big disruptor which is coming our way. And third bit is generational values, and I do not mean it in any negative way. It's just the way the Generation Z or the now there are more generations coming in as we speak, but the way kids or your young professionals think, the the way in which they would want systems to work for us. I did reference the fact that it is outcome based work. In my team, I see people, youngsters, who are very happy to sit and work out of Goa just because I'm okay to allow them to sit and work out of Goa till the time they are delivering on what they are delivering. We tasted this when we started with asynchronous learning, which most of us are now very well aware of. When you have online learning systems, anytime, anywhere, pick up a course, do it at 10 in the night when you know your child is asleep, in case you've got children. So when your children are asleep, you have peace at home, or maybe do it early in the morning when you have a cup of coffee in your hand. And as a coffee aficionado, I'll tell you, my best learning comes in with a cup of coffee in hand. So async learning, I really don't have to sit with a group of 10 people along with me at a point in time when I am mentally occupied somewhere else. So there are these big shifts: technology, COVID, and rather the mindset which COVID created. And the third bit, like I said, the generational values. These are some of the things which are disrupting. Now let's see how this is changing life for us. Outcome based work, I spoke about it. It's about workspaces also, although that is work in progress for us. Designing a workspace which promotes collaboration. There are organizations in my, as far as my knowledge goes, more outside India than in India at this point in time, where you have these workspaces which really help you innovate, help you get your space if you want to do any deep focused learning. What do we do in India? We, at least in my organization, we have these focus hours. At this hour, you will only be focusing. There are no meetings to be kept. There will be no meetings kept. Everybody has a calendar block. Or maybe something as simple as, a lunch block. Lunch hour is blocked for everyone. Now, the organization that I work with, we deal with people who are not just sitting in India, but across the geography. So a time which is, let's say, assuming my lunch hour is at 1 o'clock, I'm happy to have lunch at 1, but a colleague of mine sitting in a different geography may find 1 o'clock India to be a very convenient time to speak. How would that poor individual know unless the person goes online every time and figures out what my lunch hour could be and then does it? We simply have a block. Very simple things. Again, I'm saying symbolic gestures, but they help you really create those boundaries that I'm trying to create. The last bit that I would want to speak about is how how the need for these things is changing the benefits that we provide. When I say benefits, I'm talking of wellness benefits per se. So very often when we talk of wellness benefits, we focus on physical well-being, mental well-being. We say no. There's also got to be financial well-being. In today's world, how can you not have financial well-being? So sessions to promote that, benefits which promote well-being, policies in place which are not static policies, they are in action, and there are committees which monitor this. These are, and I'm speaking very very generically here, but the idea is to, like Sindhu was mentioning earlier, cement the idea in everybody's head that this is what the organization values, and what the organization values, the demonstration of those things is what helps you build a career in a given setup. So in my organization, if there is A, B, C, that if I demonstrate, Sakshi will rise higher at Biastoff. So it is about making that very clear. People understand the value of, people understand core values. What they don't understand is how the demonstration of these values and how leadership rallying behind those values creates those ripple effects, which help you, in a very subtle way, create that mindset change and build that culture that we're trying to build. So I think, a very very pertinent question, Raja, but warrants a you know answer at a more holistic level, rather than one two three things is what I do at Biosdog. That doesn't solve the problem. What works for me may not work for Harsha at Pega, assuming there could be a few things
Yeah,
like.
yeah. So, how do you measure, like, if you have introduced some of the, or, work-life balance programs? Okay. So, what are the indicators or feedback mechanism you people follow, in your organization?
Is that for me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Different things, Rajat. There are qualitative metrics and there are quantitative metrics as well. So one thing which we do very frequently is, rather at a regular frequency, is solicit feedback from our people. One is the annual survey, employee satisfaction surveys, which most companies run. We also have, Infido's AI platform, which helps us get responses to very very specific questions. When we rolled it out, our apprehensions were, why will people open up to a bot, or share their concerns. What we've learned is, if somebody actually took the pains of speaking about it, that feedback is taken very very seriously, and there are changes which we make after this. So this is in addition to the annual survey that we do. And what so it took a couple of iterations, rather a couple of years, for us to see that what the input that we get from our anytime anywhere bot very closely matches, yeah, rather follows what is going to come up in the annual satisfaction survey. So that's one way of us for us to measure what is happening. The other bit is on ground pulse. So I have team members who are, you know let's say, a sales business partner or maybe a corporate business partner. These people have get the pulse of the ground. They interact very very closely with uh, my workforce, which is dispersed. So really getting an idea of what is working, what is not working, what is ailing people really helps. So again, in addition to this, there are qualitative metrics where I get to hear from people managers in a structured survey, sometimes during FGDs, where we conduct them to, with the sole objective of soliciting input on whether or not whatever we've implemented is working. And we go a step ahead and we say, okay, we are not the only ones who have a brain on our head, in our heads. Why don't you tell us what you have learned in your past organizations? So most of the people come from marquee organizations who have these practices. Uh, the best way that we've realized to learn from these best practices is not to read them in a publication or a report which is generated by a consulting organization, because you don't understand the pitfalls of really implementing it. You speak to an individual who's actually witnessed this, who's lived reality. In the past organization has been a practice, and you get to know much more. It's like an onion. It helps. Once you peel it, you get to the depth of it, and you really understand what is working. So, and we've taken a leaf from some of the other organizations who do this, and it has helped us. It has helped us. So, uh, both. It's a to really summarize. It's a mix of both qualitative and quantitative metrics which we employ to see whether or not whatever we're doing is it working.
Sure. Great. Lovely. So, continuing the same, let's say, Harsha, I'll be having a question for you. Okay, as Sakshi already mentioned. So, being as an IT company, you're working, okay, and having a talent pool and everything. Okay, so even when I do work with other product-based companies, other service-based companies. So, Harsha, in your opinion, I wanted to know when specifically we do consider IT work environment. Okay, so flexible work arrangements have now more common. Okay, so as an HR leader, how do you strike the right balance? That will be the flexibility of employees and meeting their business goals as well. Being as a business leader.
I think we've many of the speakers here have already touched upon it, but I would say what we do a little different. I'm trying to see beyond what the leaders have already shared. Of course, the whole process is basis. Okay, you are an employee. What are you expected to deliver? Have you delivered? Right. That's the most important thing. Now, the ancillaries of it is: are you showing up for all the 8 hours in the office? Are you showing up? I don't think as an organization we are centered around checking out if people are showing up. I think we are a culture saying, okay, have you delivered or not? I think that is very critical. Of course, how do you get the balance? Through various ways, right? One, you want your employees to come deliver. At the same time, you also want them to kind of avail whatever benefits in terms of the leaves or whatever. So we do have a lot of data that is used, the data that is able to be leveraged in terms of saying how many leaves are taken by an employee. If he's taken very less, so then we take that data to the managers. They have it in dashboards where they say, okay, you seem to be working a lot. Why don't you take those days off, right? Now, that's one way of getting a balance when you see it's a lot of tilt towards only the work life and not your personal life. So you're trying to get a balance there. The other way could be saying, okay, the data can say a different story, saying, okay, there are a lot of vacations taken. The person's perhaps not showing up in the connection days, or the person's not showing up in a flex program on the required number of days. So we monitor that too. Now, I think we have to be very cautious when you tread this. You can't be entirely an organization which is throwing up everything out there. I think you're here to do some business, you're here to produce outcomes. So I sincerely believe it has to be data which should tell you either a story of great flexibility, at the same time, great outcomes also. You have to get your data to tell you stories like that. And at Pega, I think we try to look at both the facets of it. It's swinging the other way, more work, less balance at life. We try to bring it to a certain balance. And to just kind of summarize it, I think a lot of data today which is available, even if the employee shows up on, see, the core days. I know I didn't talk about the core days. So the expectation is, yes, you have a flexi environment. There are a few days that as a team you agree, saying I'm going to show up on these days. And when you agree, the commitment is you are going to show up. And I think as an organization, we are serious if employees are not showing up on those agreements, on those commitments. So we are going to watch out for those commitments. And if you see there's a balance tilting more towards personal life, I think as employers, we are going to bring them back. We are going to have those very strong, powerful conversations saying, look, balance cannot be misused. The flexibility cannot be misused. And there's always a risk, right? That when you give flexibility, it can be used either ways. I think we have to watch out for those patterns and trends as well using data.
Got it. Got it. So I'll be having a question, Sindhu, for you relating the same. If we just flip the side, okay. So have you seen or maybe in your last companies or maybe in past companies, have you by any studies? Okay. Let's say if any of the employees have taken any of the culture, I mean, whatsoever introduced to them, it is for a granted or they have misused the kind of flexibility they have got. Okay. And if let's say if all those things happen, how sure companies can handle that without reversing the entire supportive policies what they have actually already implemented?
That's a very pertinent question, Rajat. One of the products that we deliver is to go and measure organization culture. So we get to talk to employees across different spectrums, and we're domain agnostic. One worrying trend that we often come across is, I'm going to give you examples. We've seen organizations trusting employees. There are organizations which also go and help set up an IT infrastructure in their homes. Okay, that's the extent to which organizations are willing to go ahead to make the employee feel comfortable. On the same HRAI panel, we had one gentleman saying that he organized comfortable chairs because the employees said that we didn't have the kind of chairs we have at office at home. So the gentleman went and organized chairs for the employees. So chairs were given to people at homes. Now, unfortunately, we also have the other side. There are some employees whom I've personally seen who log into a Teams meeting, who turn off the camera and go and play football. Now, I want you to think about it not just as an isolated incident, but I also want all of us to think about the values and the ethics that this particular individual is bringing not only to the professional space, but also to the personal space. Now, that's a huge breach of trust. It's a very simple incident, but it's a huge breach of trust. Now, imagine if this individual was vested with the ownership or responsibility of delivering with the customer. How much can we trust this individual? We've also seen examples of people turning off the camera and indulge in chatting with friends. We've seen examples of people attending a training program because somebody nominated them for a training program, but they are online, the cameras are off, but they tend to do something else. Now, these may be one of isolated incidents, but when we put all of them together, it's very shocking to see the kind of degeneration of values that's taking place under the name of flexibility. I also want to quote a very interesting LinkedIn post by Dr. Kiran Bedi. Maybe some of you must have seen it recently. She had posted that she was doing an online session for students of a reputed private university recently. And what happened was 50% of them had come with the cameras off. So what she did was she just marked them absent and replaced the lecture with self-study and a test next month. And I think that's justified. When an organization or an educational institution trusts you to work from home or log in from home, I think it is basic responsibility for us to live up to the faith and trust the organization vests you with. So some of the values that we've seen people demonstrating is breach of trust, lack of ownership, taking the organization for granted, and also talking about how are people going to know whether I'm there or not. So in this case, it's imperative that the organization sends a very firm message. We are employee friendly, but we will not tolerate unethical practices. Work-life balance, yes, it exists, but along with freedom comes responsibility as well. And that is exactly where we find this. The perception of work-life balance changes across generations. Now, Sakshi made a great point about how intergenerational values keep changing or how it is different. For some people, flexibility would mean I can log in from anywhere. For others, flexibility would mean I can work into office anytime. I don't have any dress code. I can have coffee at any time. So what exactly is flexibility? What are the boundaries that need to be clearly called out by the organization? Not in terms of policies or frameworks, but like what Harsha said, has to be seen as living up. Leaders will have to demonstrate this, call out unethical practices, make a corrective course of action, and drive this as culture.
I totally agree. I'm true with it. So, what's your opinion, like Harsha? If I wish to know from your side, okay, on this particular part, have you been any certain situation or a kind of scenario where any of the implemented policy by you, okay, that does not actually work out in a proper planned way?
I mean, when you start off, you make some assumptions, of course, right? When we were on this whole flexi journey, also return to work program, of course, we had our own challenges, right? We didn't want to be prescriptive or mandating employees to come back to work. And we were trying to be a magnet saying, okay, we do have a lot of reasons why you should show up to work. You can innovate, you can have those great conversations, build those relations. But when this communication went out that we would love you to come back, we were doing just communications, not mandating. I think we did have some section of people showing up, some section of people still opting remote. That took us a while to say, okay, who do we want to be? We paused and we said, okay, fine, some are showing up, some are not, but what do we really want? So we went to different leaders. There are different lines of businesses in the organizations. For example, the engineering organization said, we believe people come together and that's when magic happens. So we were very clear saying, okay, you got to show up 3 days. And then there was a sales organization. We didn't need them to show up in the organization. There's a support, which perhaps we said, okay, you can do it from home. So I think we had to go through that journey of finding out how the business leaders wanted their organizations to look like in the new environment. I think that path took us 2 years to kind of iron out the frameworks also, because now you're in the same organization with different approaches of flexibility. People who are showing up 3 days, I think they were asking, saying, okay, somebody else is not showing up at all. Now, why do we have to show up? But I think as an organization, taking a position on it, explaining the why of it, explaining why it's important on the R&D side. And I think someone was also talking about the collab spaces. Pega has those collab spaces. Our office, more than welcome, open invitation to all of you to visit whenever you can.
Yeah,
But we do have those beautiful spaces where you can just come together and talk through whiteboard. They're not like those meeting rooms, but just pure collab spaces. So we had to clarify our position as to why we are offering this kind of a flexibility versus some other group in the organization. I think we are in a much more better shape after those 2 years of kind of ironing out these return to work programs.
Great, great, good to. So, if I wish to know some any recent examples, or maybe something in your past, if you know somewhere any of the employee or any of the member from your team, or maybe someone from any other department who actually took any of the flexibility for granted, if you remember something.
I wouldn't throw anybody under the bus, but of course, we do come across these people. I think it's inevitable. You can't have 100% of your organization aligned on everything you're kind of putting there. We do have examples. We have taken some difficult actions also, but I think it's part of how changes happen.
Get it. Totally sound. So, Shakshi, lastly, I wanted to know from your side.
Before
Okay, the same
before we
question.
go
Okay.
before we
Yeah.
go there, Rajat, when Harsha was answering this, she was saying she didn't want to push anyone under the bus, and I realized on a very light vein, uh, that sometimes you don't need to. So I'll give you an example, and I'll give you my own example. So my company encourages, physical fitness and everything. So this gym membership, which we get very happily, I took it up, resolved I'll do something, and many months down the line, I've done nothing. So while my organization does not penalize me for not taking up the fitness journey, it's a reminder enough. Every day I see the mirror and I know the state that I am in. So sometimes you don't need these things. But yeah, that was on a very light vein. But yes, there are definitely things which you learn on the way when you implement anything new.
Get it. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I mean, thank you for honestly, sharing this particular feedback. Okay, so going ahead, I'll be having a single question for each of you, kind of, I can say, rapid fire questions. Okay, so firstly, Shakshi, with you, I'll be having, let's say, if being as an HR, you had a power or superpower, okay, what it should be. Okay, that will be a mind reading, cloning top talent, or turning feedback into action instantly, or I can say.
Now, this is a very, very personal response, Rajat. My answer
Uh-huh.
is mind reading.
Yeah,
A lot
thank
of
you.
things I would really love to know.
Get it. So if I was to know with Harsha, okay,
Yeah.
let's say one thing you need to eliminate from corporate life, that is back-to-back office meetings, long emails, or last-minute deadlines. Which one you will eliminate?
Long emails. I have less patience to really go through those long emails.
Got it. Thank
Yes.
you, thank you, thank you. Lastly, I'll be having a question the same with Sindhu. Let's say they'll be having a myth, or what's common myth about work-life balance that you have often hear? Anything?
Repeat the question, please. Sorry, Rajat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what a common myth about work-life balance that you often hear?
The
Anything you
most
wish to share?
Yeah, something that I shared earlier. People think work-life balance means I can wake up at 10 o'clock and walk into office without showering in my round neck t-shirt at 11:30 and then log off at 3 o'clock. That means my organization is employee friendly and I have work-life balance. That's a recurring one, and you won't believe it, Rajat. Some of the training requirements that we get are Sindhu, can you do training programs to get employees back to work? Because people think coming to work is interacting with the coffee machines and going back. That's the biggest myth I've seen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Harsha, Sakshi, and Sindhu, for sharing your thoughts, experiencing honestly. It's clear that creating balance at work, it's not a one size fits for all approaches. Okay, but of course, it starts with intentional leadership, empathy, and the courage to rethink old models somewhere. Okay. On that note, I'll handle it back to Faisal to take us forward. Thank you again for the panelists and everyone who joined us today. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajat, for your outstanding moderation. Your skillful felicitation brought both energy and insight to the session, guiding the conversation with clarity, poise, and a strong sense of purpose. You truly elevated the dialogue. Grateful appreciation to Harsha, Sindhu, and Sakshi for sharing their insightful perspectives and thoughtful contributions. Your perspective on how employers can help redefine boundaries were not only insightful but deeply resonant. You brought clarity, nuance, and passion to a topic that affects us all. Thank you for leading with authenticity and impact. Your time and effort made this session truly impactful. Looking forward to many more enriching and engaging conversations ahead. For those eager to visit today's insights, the session recording is available on our YouTube link shared in the chat window. A special thanks to our event partners, Geisha, Mascom COE, Talgro, TLE, WICCI, LinkedIn Local, Ahmedabad, and India for their invaluable support in making this event a success. To learn more about these associations, please refer to the links provided in the chat. We look forward to welcoming you to our next session on the topic the role of artificial intelligence in transforming corporate growth and innovation on 22nd May 2025. With that, we conclude today's webinar. Thank you for being part of this journey. Wishing you good health, positivity, and success until we meet again. Take care and farewell for now. Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, Sindhu. Thank you, Arsha. Thank you, Rajat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.